Really, what I'm more concerned about, though, is this next decade. What does the next 10 years at Alabama look like? Because it's not going to look like the previous 10 years at Alabama. It's not going to look like the previous decade and a half at Alabama. We know that. We know that's not going to happen. So, regardless, Alabama is going to fall. What up, baby? It's your boy, the ATX Junior, back with another video. And today, I just wanted to have a little sit down, a little, mano, just conversation about good old Alabama Crimson Tide, man. Now, obviously, we all know that Nick Saban packed his bags, headed home. Not saying that he couldn't continue to be great. He could have been great as long as he wanted to. But I mean, hey, everybody has a time, and it's Nick's time now. So he's gone. He's out of there. No more Nick Saban at Alabama. And we're seeing a lot of reaction. We're seeing a lot of negativity coming out of that program right now when it comes to losing players into the transfer portal, losing commits, that clearly were there for Nick Saban. And honestly, it couldn't have been worse timing. I mean, on Nick's end, because I mean, now that he's gone, the transfer portal's closed. I mean, these players can leave, they can leave, and they can commit wherever they want to commit to. But I don't know how it works. I don't know if Bama can really just go out there and find players for real like that. I mean, because I think the only way you can leave is if your head coach, had previously left. So then it opens up the transfer portal for you when it's pretty much closed for everybody else. So we're seeing a lot of Alabama transfer portal, negativity coming through, because obviously these players are here for Nick Saban. I mean, the dude's been here since 2007. I mean, what do you expect, right? Like, the Bama that we know today is not Alabama without Nick Saban. So, and there's no doubt in my mind that Alabama is a true blue blood. We know that they have history. They've been winning national championships since before the 70s and everything like that. All that, whatever the case may be. But before Nick Saban, he won his first national championship in like '09 or something. No handy dandy notebook out today. This is just kind of freestyling. I'm just trying to have a conversation with y'all. But Nick Saban, no championship since like '09. I think before that they might have won a championship in like '92, something like that. Before I was born, let's put it that way. Before I was born, I think they might have a. I don't know what's the difference between like claimed championships and unclaimed championships. I don't know, but regardless, I think they had one in '92, and then before that, I think it was the '70s before they got another championship. Since then, I don't know. It could be wrong, but the thing is how I wanted to the question I wanted to kind of put out there is, and honestly, this is a question that's gonna get answered with time, but I wanted to know how y'all felt about this. How blue is Alabama's blood? Don't get me wrong. I can't sit here and just act like they don't have the tradition, they don't have the history to be able to say that they're blue blood. But if we're talking about modern day, right now, we know that Alabama's blood has been the bluest blood of them all since from 2009 to 2023, 2024. Now we know Alabama has had the bluest blood. But there's one man responsible for that. And we know that that's Nick Saban. Before Nick Saban got there, they were like winning like 7, 8 games a year. I mean, it's like that's probably like a good average for the last 10 plus years before Nick Saban got there. I don't know. I don't have the stacks in front of me, but when Nick Saban got there, he really made a big change. He really changed the narrative about Alabama. And now that he's gone, so I mean the narrative ain't gone yet because I mean they haven't put anything on the field since he's been gone yet. But with the moves that Alabama's making, don't get me wrong, I mean they're good coaches. I mean like the Washington coach, that's a good move I would say just because he was just in the national championship or whatnot. But I don't think that's really gonna get you there, man. Like I don't think that he's. I mean, who's time will tell. Time will tell. I could be completely wrong, but just off of the moves that they're making right now, it reminds me of the Oklahoma Lincoln Riley, and I remember asking, what kind of transfer, what kind of translation, what kind of what's the word I'm looking for? What kind of transition is this going to be for Alabama? Is it going to be a Bob Stoops transition or is it going to be a Lincoln Riley transition? And we now know that this is more of a Lincoln Riley type of transition. It doesn't seem like Alabama really had their ducks in order before Nick Saban left. They might have had a couple options. They might have had a list from Nick Saban. Hey, try to get Sarkisian. Hey, try to get freaking Smart. Try to get the Oregon coach. But Bob Stoops didn't have a list of coaches. He knew, when I leave, Lincoln Riley, you're taking over. And don't get me wrong, when Lincoln Riley left, you can't really compare that to Nick Saban leaving either because at least Nick Saban gave you a list. At least he gave you a list. And he ain't go somewhere else and take all your players. Your players are leaving willingly because they don't want to play for the new guy. Oklahoma's players, they were left. They had to leave because, well, they didn't have to leave, but they left because, hey, we can go play in California now. Our commits got decommitted and they left because, hey, we can play in California now. We can stay home. A lot of them. So I would say that the Nick Saban move is kind of somewhere in between the Bob Stoops and in between the Lincoln Riley, closer to Lincoln Riley's departure from Oklahoma. But what I want to see, what we're gonna find out when I say how blue is Alabama's blood is, can you recover from this? You got to remember, before Nick Saban, Alabama, you got to remember, man, Alabama is not the Alabama of today before Nick Saban. Without Nick Saban, Alabama is not the Alabama of today. Facts is facts. I mean, I'm not disrespecting Alabama here. Don't get me wrong. Greatest franchise in, I mean, you could call it a franchise now because, I mean, hey, we're paying these players. But greatest franchise in college football history, at least when it comes to my lifetime. I was born in '94, so I can't speak on anything before that. But within my lifetime, obviously, Alabama are the big dogs. They are the kings. But again, that's because of one man, and that's Nick Saban. Now that he's gone, and the moves Alabama made, this is why I compared him to Oklahoma so much, because Oklahoma had a offensive head coach, dominant offensive head coach, best offensive in the nation. Technically, I mean, you can say that. And when we transitioned, when we left, we moved to a defensive coach, which obviously that doesn't encourage any of the offense to stay. They're like, hey, one, we can go with our offensive coach. We can go with our head coach, Lincoln Riley. And two, who are you going to bring in to replace the best offensive coordinator in the nation? It's not really. I mean, we did bring in Jeff Lebby, which is a good second. Don't get me wrong, but or maybe third, fourth, top 5. Let's put it that way. But that didn't encourage a lot of our players to stay. And it's the same way Alabama's moving. You know, they got rid of Nick. Well, they didn't get rid of Nick Saban left, which is arguably and barely even arguably. I believe that Nick Saban is the best defensive head coach in the nation. Obviously, I mean, he got the track record to prove it. It don't matter who you put on Alabama's staff at defensive coordinator, they're gonna have a good defense, and that is because of Nick Saban. But now he's gone. Alabama has now transitioned to an offensive head coach. Not only did they transition to an offensive head coach, they transitioned to an offensive head coach that doesn't really have the recruiting base in the South. More of a West Coast guy, you know. And then on top of that, this is where Alabama messed up. This is where you question, like, you know, how is this going to work out for them going forward? When you hire a defensive coordinator from South Alabama, what's his name, Kane Womack or something? When you hire a defensive coordinator out of South Alabama, your defense is already looking at you like, damn, okay, we got rid of Nick Saban's gone. Who's gonna encourage me to stay then? You know, Oklahoma brought in Jeff Lebby. Good move. Alabama's bringing in Kane Womack, South Alabama University or whatever. That's not going to encourage any of those 5 stars, any of those 4 stars to come and stay at Alabama. Like, you don't really want to hire an unknown like that. You don't want to test the waters like that whenever you are freshly trying to restart this program. You got to get some known names out there. You got to get some names that these players are going to be interested in staying, interested in, or encouraged to play, to really want to stay at Alabama. That ain't the move that the head coach made. So that goes back to my question. How blue is Alabama's blood? And we're going to find that out. We're going to find that out within the next 5 years. We're going to figure exactly out. Because you got to think about it. All these players entering the transfer portal, all these players decommitting. Alabama is loaded with talent. So you can lose 5 players. You can lose 6, 7 players. Hell, Bama could probably lose 10 players and still be okay. But what is the tradition gonna be like? Well, not tradition. Tradition is set in stone. We know Alabama's tradition. We know their history. But what's the energy like in that locker room now? You know, what is? There's so many things. There's so many different cards that's in the deck of Alabama right now that you don't know what you're drawing next, and it's crucial. This is a crucial moment in Alabama football history right here. You're either going to continue the Nick Saban run, which there's only one Nick Saban, so I doubt that's going to happen. Or you're going to go back to reality, you know, and be Bama before Nick Saban. And it might, like I said, it might take 5 years for that talent to filter out of Alabama and y'all to really feel the effects of these things. But we're going to see. We're going to see because, you know, we know Alabama's always top 3 in recruiting. They don't really have to worry about the transfer portal as much because all the people in the transfer portal is already coming from their team. You know, like Alabama has not had to worry about who are we going to replace for this. I mean, I think they did have that quarterback question going into last year. But outside of that, Alabama never has any issues when it comes to talent on the field. We're about to see how that changes right now. And it's already making a dramatic change. But once this portal opens back up, we're going to see exactly what Bama can do, you know. And you know, I'm not even going to talk about that because I don't even want to bring them up. But, yeah, man, just wanted to drop in on y'all. We going on 15 minutes. How blue is Alabama's blood? Blue as hell. That's what I say. Alabama blood is blue as hell. But that's just going off of 2023 and before. What, 1923, whatever. That's going off of the previous 100 years, the previous decade of college football. But what's the next decade gonna look like? What's the next century gonna look like at Alabama? We can go off of the previous century of Alabama sports, and we can look at them and say, over the last century, Alabama's blood is blue as hell. But what is 2024 to freaking 2000 or 21-24 gonna look like if we hear that long? But what's that gonna look like for Alabama? Really, what I'm more concerned about, though, is this next decade. What is the next 10 years at Alabama look like? Because it's not going to look like the previous 10 years at Alabama. It's not going to look like the previous decade and a half at Alabama. We know that. We know that's not going to happen. So regardless, Alabama is going to fall. It's damn near locked in. It's damn near guaranteed. Alabama is going to fall. The only reason why I can say that Alabama is going to fall is because they are already at the pinnacle. They are already at the top. So when I say Alabama is going to fall, they can fall and become an Oklahoma. They can fall and become a UT. They can fall and become a freaking LSU. They can fall and become a Clemson. They can fall and become an Ohio State. Like, that don't sound crazy, right? That don't sound like Alabama. Look at that, they'll be like, oh, we'll take that. But regardless, you're falling. That's a fall from grace. That's a fall from the top. Cause with Nick Saban on that sideline, there's no question who's the best team in the nation. Every year in, year out. There's no question. And Georgia, within the last, 3-4 years, they might have had something to say about that. Excuse me. But time will tell if Alabama's blood is going to remain as blue as ever, Papa Smurf, or are they going to be diluted a little bit? Is it going to be a little diluted? Are you going to fall to an Oklahoma standard? Are you going to fall to a Texas standard, which is below an Oklahoma standard, even though it may not seem like that right now? But again, time will tell. I don't really think Alabama has much to worry about within the next 2-3 years. I think they're still going to be in the picture. They're not going to be top dogs, but they're going to be around. They're going to be around the top. Like I said, that fall from grace is probably going to be like Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, Oklahoma. Like, they're probably going to be more like us. They're going to be more like the field. But the prior 5 to 7 years after that, when these players have been able to make their decision over the years, whether it's, hey, I tried this Alabama thing for a year. It's not working out for me. I need to go. You got to think about that. All these Alabama players that are here because of Nick Saban are going to be leaving. Regardless, one way or another, whether it's going to the NFL draft, whether it's graduating, or whether it's this ain't a good fit for me. So pay attention to Alabama's recruiting. Pay attention to their recruiting class. Pay attention to how they move going forward, because that is going to be the biggest difference. The biggest difference in the Alabama that we've known versus the Alabama that we're getting to know. So yeah, keep y'all eyes on that, man. I guess to tweak the question a little bit, make it make a little more sense. How blue will Alabama's blood continue to be? Are we talking Papa Smurf? Are we talking sky blue, a little diluted? You know, it's not as dark no more. Time will tell. But you see how Oklahoma, how we handled our situation. You know, we had this fall from grace. Obviously, we were never at Alabama standard, but we had this fall from grace. And you see how we've recovered, we've picked up, and we've rebuilt. And that's in our DNA, man. I mean, what more can I say, right? Bye. Click that video. I'm tired of telling y'all this. I'm finna start telling y'all this every time. Click the video. It's on the screen right now. Click it. I don't know what you waiting on. If you ain't clicked it by now, you hating on me. All right, man. Whatever. Bye. Deuces.